Okay, this video is for Kavita, and she is my former RA, and the reason I'm making it is because she wants to know how to make sand plum jam. Kavita, what you're looking at right now is a sand plum thicket, and I want you to see this because I think it's important to be able to recognize them without the sand plums in case you're looking around and want to see where they might be next summer. So this is what they look like without the sand. This is what they look like with the sand plums. They're so pretty. I'm going to pull this branch down and kind of get in closely. These are very ripe, very nice. You can pick them lighter colored or really nicely ripe. I wouldn't pick them if they were, rotten and splitting because the tartness is gone. But that's where they are. That's what they look like. And then this is just what they look like when you're driving down the road. Sometimes you get confused. Sometimes dogwoods look a little bit like the thickets. All right, now we're inside and I'm just kind of zooming in on what the good selection of sand plums looks like. You can see that there's some green ones, some just nice ripe ones. There's a couple that are a little bit darker in color, but it's just fine to have the green, not super green, but that only have ripeness maybe on one side and not all the way around to the other. And so this bowl right here, you can see that's about 8 pounds of plums. It's a lot. And so I'll probably just make half of a recipe using about 4 pounds and see how that goes. All right, so I've separated them into 2 bowls with 4 pounds each. And I'm going to go ahead and put one of the 4-pound bowls into my big kettle over here. To my kettle, I've already added 1 cup of water, and that's going to help start the steaming process, but as soon as they start steaming, then they'll start making their own juice. So we don't want to add too much water because then you have to reduce it and it wouldn't set up as good, when you're making jam. So we don't want any more water than we have to. So just enough to get started. 1 cup is good. Okay, so there's how much visual 4 pounds looks like, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn my big flame on and just cover the pot. We want to keep all the heat in we can. And this process right here for this amount is going to probably last about, I'm going to guess, between 20 and 25 minutes. They all need to be fairly well split and very soft. Sometimes they go as fast as like 15 or 20, but I'm going to guess 20. So I'm going to set my timer over here. Okay, so I set my timer right at 20 minutes for 4 pounds, starting from just cold water, raising it to a good boil. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so it's been 10 minutes, and I'll kind of show you what it looks like. I have this pot on medium-high flame, and ooh, that smells so good. I'm going to just stir one time, get my wooden spoon out and kind of stir around so that all the fruit can have the best chance of getting evenly cooked. But it looks to me like some are already starting to swell up a little bit, and I've got 1 or 2 skins starting to split. So it may be on that 15 or 20 minute mark pretty well. Well, we still have 3 minutes left on our timer, but this is looking really, really good, and I think it's pretty much done. You can see the foam was lifting all the way up. Oh yeah, the fruit is nice and soft to touch. It's really easy to move around. I'm holding the camera and I look a little funky in some of my movements because I have one hand and I'm not using the other hand to be able to stabilize, but you can see that it's really nice. The fruit is very relaxed and soft, and I'm going to call it done. I'm going to go ahead and turn the flame off. And what I'm going to do next is maybe take a potato masher and mash down just a little bit so that it will split open the fruit and it'll be easier to go ahead and put into the ricer. I've smashed down the fruit, and so you can see the pits kind of floating up in the top of it, but this should be really easy to go ahead and use with our colander system. This trick is something that I just started doing this year. I've got 3 bricks on the legs of my colander, and the reason I do is because it lifts it up higher. That way when you're filling up your colander with all of your pulp, if you start filling your bowl up, eventually the base of the colander is sitting right in there into the fruit and it doesn't easily flow out. So I like to have it up as high as possible, that way it keeps it above the fruit level in the bowl so gravity can keep pulling it down. So now what I'm going to do is talk to you a little bit about method. Some people like to just take this pulp and drain it very gently and use mostly juice. They might even use a jelly bag instead of a device like this. I use this kind of device because I love the pulp. The pulp makes the jam thick and spreadable. That's what makes it jam. So this is basically the method on taking your cooked fruit. So I just scoop it out, plop it in here, and you can see it just kind of starts running out. I may move the camera so you can see the sides, but I'll fill up the colander with a couple of scoops, and then you just rotate it real gently, and it just squishes all out the sides, and you can see it filling up the bowl down there. It's real easy, and if you've already kind of pre-smashed your fruit, it goes out even easier. When you've almost got all of the juice out of your very first scoops of fruit, what you want to do is kind of make sure and shake down all of the seeds and all the skins and get it as dry as you can. You don't want to waste any. And once it's all squirted out and you think you've got everything out, take a spatula and go ahead and go down the sides of the outside of your colander. There's actually a French term for this colander, but I can't remember what it is. And that way you're not wasting any pulp and you're not dripping when you go over to your refuse. One of the problems I have with this is that I don't usually compost. I usually have to go ahead and put it in the trash or toss it out back over the fence because it's got seeds in it, and seeds just aren't composting as well as I'd like them to. I'm working on my very last 2 scoops. There's a little bit over 2 scoops, but this is it. That took about 3. This is my 3rd full colander of fruit for that 4 pounds. And it'll all depend on, whatever kind of tool you're using. As you can see, I don't know if you can see this or not, but the fruit level is still far down in this mixing bowl, and that's the reason I'm using my bricks, because if it wasn't by now, the tip of it would be down underneath the surface level. And so I'm going to finish this up, and then we will start talking about sugar to fruit philosophy. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about sugar to fruit philosophy just for a second. I pulled up all of the sand plum recipes on the first couple of pages of Google. You can just Google or use a search engine and go to sand plum jelly, sand plum jam. You can see lots and lots of recipes and instructions. But what you'll notice is that some of the recipes have about 1-to-1 ratio. So you'll see that for 4 cups of pulp, then they want you to use 4 cups of sugar. And some of them are more, so maybe 6 cups of sugar for 4 cups of pulp. I saw a video where there was like 8 or 9 cups of sugar for 5 cups of pulp. It just sounded like so much sugar. One of the good things about sand plum jelly, people like it because it's tart. And so what you want to do is you want to not squelch the natural tartness with so much sugar. Plus, we can only eat so much sugar. Our bodies can't handle that much. So I suggest that you use at least 1-to-1 or even less. I wouldn't go down to more than 1 to 2/3. So you might, for every 4 cups of pulp, use 3 cups of sugar. Probably not any less than that to start. But once you start cooking it a lot, then you'll find your own ratio that you like and that you feel comfortable with, and it's a good flavor profile for you. But either 1-to-1 or maybe just a little bit under. Well, the pulp for 4 pounds measured out almost exactly to 4 cups of pulp. There's maybe just barely under. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and I measured out about 3 and maybe 2/3 cups of sugar. Maybe I was close to 3/4, but I'm close to a 1-to-1 palette. And then I have the pectin, for my recipe. I have a ladle over there. I love that ladle. It's very old. There's also my parents' tomatoes, and you can see a rabbit ate out of that one. Moving on, I've got jars and lids I just pulled out of the dishwasher. They're still warm. And here is my pan, and so I'm going to put the pulp and the pectin in there and bring it to a boil, and then we'll do the sugar. Alright, so there's some pectin sprinkled on top. You can see the pan's already heating up. One of the things that's a little optional for sand plum jam is the use of pectin. Some recipes will say don't use pectin because it has natural pectin in it. Others will say you use pectin, and they don't give any kind of explanation as to why or why not. What I found is that if I don't, the pectin level is variable, and so it looks and acts a little bit different every time. And so what I have to do sometimes is just re-cook it and reduce it a little bit because it's a little too runny. Sometimes it works just fine. So I think you should go ahead and always use pectin, even if that is, you know, messing up the recipe for the purist a little bit. I just feel that that way you don't have to ever recook it and recan it, and it's a little bit more consistent. And you know, if you're gonna mess jam up, it's probably a little bit better to be on the thicker side than the thinner side, because you're always chasing it off your biscuit or your toast. So I brought my pulp to sort of a foamy, bubbly boil, and got it boiling for about a minute. It's just really rolly and foamy. And at that point, then I went ahead and added about 1.5 tablespoons of butter. It varies from recipe to recipe, but the butter supposedly helps cut down on the foam. And then I added my sugar, and so now I'm trying to just bring it to a boil. Once it's at that rolling boil and the foam's really rolling, then you cook it for about 2 minutes and it's done. Well, my jelly's been boiling for almost 2 minutes. I don't have my candy thermometer with me. I have no idea where it is, and so you can go to 220 degrees or boil for 2 minutes and you know you've got it. It's doing nicely. This is actually a little bit smaller than the usual recipes that I make, and so I'm not fighting with it, trying to keep it down, you know, from bubbling over or anything. But my timer's getting ready to go off, and then we'll go ahead and load the jelly into the jars that are sitting over here waiting. Okay, so one thing that sand plum jam does, just like all other, well, most jams, not all, it foams. And so I'm going to set it off the burner, and what I have is, I'll kind of show you, this is kind of weird looking, but this is my foam jar, and we eat toast and biscuits and things out of it for the first 2 or 3 days after. But the color is kind of weird. Anyway, so this is the foam that I've been scooping off of the jam, and I'm going to continue to do that. I just sort of work it over to the side and kind of scoop it up and plop. It doesn't take very many scoops so you can get most of the foam off. The reason people take it off is just because they like their jam to be pretty and clear and not variegated, having that foamy look to the tops. It will float to the top if you put it in the cans. Sometimes I just put it in there. You know, I just figure, well, it's edible. It's just foamy jelly instead of more solid jelly, and that way I don't have to mess with it. But today I'm messing with it so I can show you how to have pretty jam. Very pretty jam. Okay, so that is most of the foam. I don't know if you can see most of the foam right there. Some light's making it look weird. But that's it, and then you can put it on your toast. Now, what I'm going to do is move this. The burner's probably cool enough now where I can go ahead and start. I always need a pot holder because you have to pick up the hot jars. So just take your scoop and fill your jar. You want to fill it down to, fill it up to that first line. I'm dripping a little bit. and then you take it out and put that in the next one, the lids and the rings on tightly, and you're done. It's so pretty. People say, ooh, Oklahoma sunset color. So you just keep going until you're finished. I'll do one more. This is a wide-mouthed jar. I like those because they're easy to kind of get in and out. If you have like a spoon, a lot of times you can use sand plum jam as like a base to some sauces or something nice for meats. Make it all fancy. Some rosemary or some wine in there, and okay. So there's two. Oh, the jar's getting hot. Now that jam is so hot that those will seal in just a little bit, but that's it. I've got a couple more notes and then we'll stop. Okay, so as you can see by all these jars, I've been canning sand plum jelly for about 2 days now, or maybe 3. I only have 4 pounds left, and so we made today 4 pounds, which created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 half pints. So maybe 4 pounds gets you 6 half pints. You can kind of judge what sorts of recipes you would want to go for, or amounts. So I'll have 6 more half pints. And I wanted to let you know that I don't use a hot water bath. I use sterilized jars right out of my dishwasher. I usually use new lids, sometimes if they're not bent, and I've only used them once and they're really intact, I'll go ahead and use them a second time, but make sure they're sterilized and the rings are sterilized as well. But jelly is so hot that it's kind of redundant to go ahead and just hot water bath it again. The only thing that hot water bath does is it might bring it back up even a little bit hotter, and so when it hits the cold air, it'll seal faster. But usually these things will start pinging in about 10 or 15 minutes, and they're all done within like 20 to 25. When they hit room temperature, then you hear this really lovely ping ping and pops, and so it's fun to listen to. So far, out of using that method with no hot water bath, I've sealed all these jars, had no problems at all. You can see that this jam isn't settling, you know, so that's what a solid jam would look like. I was trying to see if I had any jam that was a little bit less solid. I've got, no, that looks good too. This all worked out. I did want to show you one. I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is one jar that has the foam on it. So if you can see that variegated, the lighter color right there at the top. So if you are jamming and you don't care and you want to leave your foam in it, then it looks like that. Otherwise, it looks beautiful, and they're great for gifts. And my husband and I spent about 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, and we got 4 gallons. So that labor cost was about $10 or $12. And so if you want to think about how much it costs you, these jars are on their 2nd, 3rd, or 4th time. People around here trade jars all the time. You can sometimes get them free from a friend that doesn't want them anymore, or on Craigslist. But you can also sometimes find them for really reduced prices at the thrift store too. So if you buy them at Walmart, depending on the kind of jar that you get, you might spend $1 a jar, 50 cents a jar, or maybe even $1.25 or $50 a jar, because they come with the jar, the lid, and a ring, and then you can just go from there to build your inventory. Okay. Kavita, that's how you make sand plum jelly, and I hope that you learned something today. Give me a call or email me if you have any problems or questions, and I hope this video can help somebody. So thanks. Bye.